I remember the exact moment my life split into two halves. The day I learned my granddaughter existed, and the day I was told she had already been given away. It wasn't the words that broke me. It was how easily my son said them. Like he was talking about returning a faulty appliance. "I couldn't handle it, Mom," he said, eyes fixed somewhere over my shoulder. "She was born deaf. It was too much. Too much." I still hear that phrase in my sleep. I wish I could say I screamed, that I threw something, that I demanded answers like any mother should. But I didn't. I just sat there, hands folded in my lap, as if I were listening to a stranger describe someone else's tragedy. Because in that moment, I didn't recognize the man in front of me as my son. Not the boy I had raised. Not the boy who used to cry when birds fell from their nests, or who once spent an entire night trying to nurse a stray kitten back to life. That boy would have never said something like that. "Where is she now?" I asked quietly. He hesitated. That was the first crack. I don't know exactly," he replied. "The agency handled everything. It was a closed adoption. Closed. Final. Irreversible." I nodded slowly, even though nothing inside me was calm. "And her mother?" I asked. He looked down at his hands then, rubbing his thumb against his palm. "She didn't want to keep her either," he said. We both agreed it was. For the best. For the best. There it was again, that strange, distant language. Words stripped of feeling, wrapped in convenience. I studied his face, searching for something, guilt, regret, even hesitation. But all I saw was relief, and that's when the silence between us became unbearable. For years, it had just been the two of us. After his father passed, my son became my whole world. I worked double shifts, skipped meals, sold jewelry I had once cherished, all to make sure. He never felt the absence too deeply. We weren't just mother and son. We were a team. He used to tell me everything. His fears, his dreams, even the smallest things. Like how he hated the sound of chalk on a blackboard, or how he secretly liked old songs. I used to hum in the kitchen, so when he told me he was expecting a child, I thought, this was it. A new beginning, a second chance at joy. I remember the way his voice trembled when he first shared the news. "I'm going to be a dad," he had said, smiling nervously. And I had held his face in my hands, telling him he would be a wonderful one. I believed it. God, I believed it with everything I had. The months that followed were strange. He became distant. At first, I told myself it was normal. Stress, responsibility, fear, these things change people. But there were moments, small ones, that didn't sit right. He avoided talking about the baby. Whenever I asked about doctor visits or preparations, his answers were short, almost rehearsed. "Everything's fine. She's healthy. We've got it covered." Covered. Another word that meant nothing. I offered to help. To buy clothes, prepare a room, even just be there. But he always declined. "Not yet, Mom," he would say. "We'll let you know." I should have pushed harder. That thought haunts me now, because somewhere deep inside I knew something was off. I just didn't want to believe it. The day the baby was born, I wasn't there. I didn't even know it had happened until 2 days later. 2 days. When he finally called, his voice sounded empty. "It's a girl," he said. I smiled, tears already forming. "My granddaughter," I whispered. There was a pause on the line. A long one, and then he said, "Yeah." No excitement. No pride. Just that. I asked if I could come see her. He hesitated again. Another crack. "Not right now," he said. "She's in the NICU, some complications." My heart dropped. "What kind of complications?" "Just hearing issues," he replied quickly. "Doctors are still checking." Hearing issues. At the time, it sounded like something temporary, something that could be treated, managed, fixed. I didn't know it was the beginning of an excuse. Weeks passed, then months, and somehow I never met her. Every time I asked, there was a reason. "She's still under observation. We're adjusting. It's not a good time." Eventually, the calls became less frequent, then rare, then almost non-existent. I told myself he was overwhelmed. That new parent's struggle, that he would come around. I clung to those thoughts like a lifeline, until the day he showed up at my door unannounced. He looked thinner, older, like something inside him had quietly collapsed. We sat at the kitchen table, the same one where he used to do his homework, where we celebrated birthdays, Where life once felt simple, that's when he told me everything. Or at least, what he chose to tell. She couldn't hear, Mom, he said. Not at all. I nodded slowly, waiting. And I couldn't do it. The words landed like stones. She deserved more than what I could give, he continued. A family that knows how to handle that kind of situation. I remember staring at him, trying to understand. You mean a family that didn't give up? I asked quietly. He flinched. Just slightly, but I saw it. That was the second crack. She's better off, he insisted. They're trained. They know what they're doing. And you don't? I asked. Silence. That night after he left, I didn't sleep. I sat in the dark, replaying every moment, every conversation, every missed sign. A child existed somewhere in this world, my granddaughter, and she had been given away. Not because she was unwanted, but because she was different. That thought settled into my chest like a weight I couldn't shake. By morning, I had made a decision. If I couldn't find her, I would prepare for the day I might. It started with a single book, a worn-out guide to sign language I found in a small shop downtown. The pages smelled like dust and time, but to me, they felt like possibility. I didn't tell anyone, not even my son. This wasn't about him anymore. This was about her. Every night I practiced. At first, my hands felt clumsy, uncoordinated. Simple gestures took minutes to remember. But I kept going. Hours turned into weeks, weeks into months, and slowly, something changed. The movements became natural. The silence became expressive. For the first time, I realized that communication didn't need sound to be powerful. Sometimes it was even more honest without it. Years passed. People moved on. But I didn't. I couldn't. Because somewhere out there a little girl was growing up, learning, laughing, living a life I wasn't part of, and I refused to let that be the end of the story. One afternoon, nearly 7 years later, I received a letter. No return address, no name, just my own, written in careful, uneven handwriting. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a single photograph. A young girl, maybe 6 or 7 years old, dark eyes, familiar features. And in her hands, she was forming a sign I knew, a sign I had practiced 1,000 times. Grandmother. My breath caught. Tucked behind the photo was a small note. 3 words, nothing more. She is asking. My heart began to race, because in that moment, I realized something that made my blood run cold. This wasn't a coincidence. This wasn't luck. Someone had been watching me, watching all these years, and now they were finally reaching out, or warning me. The first time I saw that photograph, my hands forgot how to move. 7 years of learning, practicing, preparing, and in that single moment, I felt like I knew nothing at all, because this wasn't just a picture. It was proof. Proof that she was real. Proof that she was out there. And most terrifying of all, proof that someone had been close enough to know I never stopped looking. I read the note again. She is asking. Not, she asked. Not, she was asking. Present tense. Ongoing. Alive. My granddaughter was looking for someone. For me. That night, I didn't turn on the lights. I sat at the kitchen table, the photograph laid flat in front of me, tracing the outline of her face with my eyes as if I could memorize every detail. Her hair was tied back loosely, strands falling around her cheeks. Her expression wasn't smiling, but it wasn't sad either. It was searching, that same quiet, questioning look my son used to have when he was little, before life taught him how to look away. My chest tightened. How did you find me? I whispered into the empty room. Because whoever sent this knew my address, knew my connection to her, knew enough to send a message that would shake me to my core. And yet, they didn't say who they were. That wasn't kindness. That was control. The next morning, I did something I hadn't done in years. I called my son. He answered on the 4th ring. Mom? His voice carried surprise. And something else. Hesitation. I need to see you, I said. A pause. Is everything okay? No, I replied. It's not. We met at the same place as before, my kitchen table. Only this time, nothing felt familiar. He looked older again. Lines carved deeper into his face. His posture slightly hunched, as if the weight of something unseen had been pressing down on him for years. I didn't waste time. I placed the photograph in front of him. His reaction was immediate. He froze. Not confusion, not curiosity, recognition. His fingers hovered above the photo but didn't touch it. "Where did you get this?" he asked, his voice lower than I had ever heard it. "That's what I'm asking you," I replied. His jaw tightened. "I don't know," he said, but his eyes betrayed him. That was the third crack. "You do," I said quietly. "You just don't want to tell me." He pushed the photo back toward me. "You need to let this go, Mom. Let this go." 7 years of silence. 7 years of wondering if she was safe, if she was loved, if she even knew she had been left behind. And he wanted me to let it go. "She's asking for me," I said, my voice steady. He shook his head. "You don't know that." "I do," I replied. "Because I know that sign." Something flickered across his face then. Fear. Real, undeniable fear. "Who else knows you've been learning?" he asked suddenly. The question caught me off guard. "What?" "Sign language," he said quickly. "Who knows?" "No one," I answered. "Why does that matter?" He leaned back in his chair, running a hand over his face. "Because this isn't random," he muttered. My heart began to pound. "I know it's not," I said. "So tell me what you're not saying." Silence filled the room again, heavier this time. Then he said something that made everything shift. "The adoption wasn't as simple as I told you." I felt it before he even continued. That slow, sinking realization that the truth I had been given was only a fragment of something much darker. It wasn't just an agency, he admitted. There were conditions. "Conditions," I repeated. He nodded, eyes fixed on the table. "They wanted a child with specific needs. They said they specialized in cases like hers." My stomach turned. "What kind of conditions?" "They didn't want contact," he said. "No updates, no follow-ups, nothing." "That's not unusual for a closed adoption," I said carefully. He shook his head. "No," he whispered. "This was different." "How?" "They made me sign something," he continued. "Something that said if I ever tried to find her, or if anyone in my family did." He stopped. My breath caught. "What would happen?" I asked. He looked at me then, and for the first time in years, I saw the boy I had raised, afraid. "They said it would disrupt her placement," he said. "That it could cause consequences for everyone involved." "Consequences." The word hung in the air like a warning. "Consequences how?" I pressed. "I don't know," he admitted. "They weren't specific, but they made it clear I shouldn't ask questions." "And you didn't?" I asked softly. He looked away. "No." I stood up slowly, my chair scraping against the floor. "So you just trusted them?" I said. "You handed over your daughter to strangers, with conditions you didn't even understand? I thought it was the right thing." He snapped, his voice breaking. "I thought they could give her a better life." "And you never checked?" I demanded. "They told me not to." "And that was enough for you?" Silence. The answer was written all over his face. Yes, it had been enough. I picked up the photograph again, holding it tightly. "She's looking for me," I said. "And someone helped her do it." "That's what scares me," he replied. I turned to him. "Why?" "Because if she found you," he said slowly, "then whoever she's with either doesn't know." My heart skipped. "Or," I whispered. His eyes met mine. "They're letting it happen." A chill ran through me. Letting it happen. That meant one thing. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a secret slipping through the cracks. This was intentional. Someone had allowed her to reach out. But why now? After 7 years? "What aren't you telling me?" I asked again, my voice quieter this time. He hesitated. Then finally said, "There was one more thing." I felt my grip tighten around the photo. "What?" "They didn't just want a deaf child," he admitted. My pulse quickened. "They wanted a child, with no outside attachments." I stared at him. "I don't understand." "They asked about family," he said. "About you." A cold, creeping dread spread through my chest. "What did you tell them?" He swallowed hard. "That you wouldn't be involved." The room seemed to tilt. "And now?" I whispered. He looked at the photograph in my hands. "Now they know I was wrong." That night, I locked every door in the house. Not because I believed someone would come, but because for the first time, I wasn't sure who already had. I placed the photograph beside my bed, unable to let it out of my sight. Her small hands forming that sign. Grandmother. Tears burned my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. Because this wasn't just about finding her anymore. This was about understanding why she had to find me in secret, and what it meant that she did. 3 days later, another envelope arrived. This time it was thicker, heavier. Inside were several pages, and a small, folded piece of paper. My hands trembled as I opened it. It was a drawing. Crayon lines, uneven shapes, but unmistakable. A house, a tree, and two figures standing apart from each other. One was small, the other older. Between them, a single sign drawn over and over again. The same one, grandmother. I pressed the paper to my chest, my heart breaking and healing at the same time. Then I unfolded the pages, documents, printed, official looking. My eyes scanned the first line, and the world around me seemed to vanish. It wasn't an adoption record. It was something else. Something I had never expected. At the top of the page, in bold letters, were words that made my hands go cold. Communication Evaluation Report. Below it, her name, and next to it, a list of observations, including one that stopped my breath completely. Subject demonstrates repeated use of a learned sign not introduced during program sessions. I felt the air leave my lungs, because I knew exactly what that meant. She didn't learn that sign from them. She learned it. From someone who wasn't supposed to exist in her life. From me. Or at least, from the idea of me. And as I turned to the final page, one last line stared back at me. A note typed at the bottom. Source of exposure remains unknown. Investigation ongoing. My fingers tightened around the paper. Because now I understood. This wasn't just a reunion. This was a secret. One that someone was actively trying to uncover. And if they found out how she knew me, or why she was reaching out, then whatever conditions my son had agreed to, they were about to be broken.